Sorry. All right. Good evening. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here tonight. So nice to see all your faces. So I just wanted to say that I don't believe in coincidences. I believe that things happen in our life for very specific reasons. And then we meet people also for very specific reasons. I believe that this team of people that have joined forces are sent from above. Each one has so much to share. Their knowledge, their patience, their commitment, their drive, their dedication is really remarkable. I also wanted to say that when people come together like this, beautiful things happen. And tonight, what I see is something really beautiful that's going to for our children and for our community and for the world. All of you being here shows that you care. So thank you. My daughter's personal academic struggle is what led me on this path to find answers. And I found a solution here at Voyagers. The only thing that was missing for me was the Judaic aspect, and that's what brought me, or what led me to Rabbi Rieti. So once you see, you cannot unsee. So tonight, I invite you with an open mind and an open heart just to explore the possibility of a different approach to education. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn the attention over to the professionals and to lead the way.
So you're going to meet the whole team here. As we speak, we will take off so that you can see us. That's the liberty of that. And I am, without further ado, going to turn it to Rich. Rich, you have that.
I need this?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you wait a minute? Can we raise the screen? So there's something here, moves with the speaker. And so we are also hosting webinars so people at home can see us live and have the technology. This is the same technology that's in our classrooms. So if we have children learning remotely, they are a part of the room. And actually they can speak to us, we can hear them, so they can ask questions or participate in class. That's how it's helped us get through this difficult period of time. So Rich.
So, good evening. It's, I think students who are naturally curious and want to learn, discover, come from parents who are curious about learning and want to discover. So it's an honor for me to be in a room with you, and I thank you for what you're doing for your children, actually for your learners, because they're watching you. You want more for them, they want more for themselves. My name is Rich Allen. I'm the outreach specialist here. I'm also had the honor of being asked to be on the board at Voyagers Community School. My background, I was in public education for 34 years. I retired as a principal and central office administrator. And my big problem I wanted to solve was, how do we take students, how do we make students take ownership of their learning? How do we make them accountable for the learning? How do we make school relevant for them? And by coincidence, I was in a conversation with somebody at Brookdale Community College. He said, then you have to meet Karen. And I said, okay. So I finally met her. And I said, this is the school I always wanted. So when Karen asked me to come on board, I said, absolutely. It takes the vision of what I teach at community college and at Monmouth University, and what I do as a consultant. It takes what I teach and it actually gives a real working body. It takes that theory and brings it into practice, and that's why I'm so honored to be here and to work as an ambassador for the school, because I take pleasure in watching students start to own their own education, because they're not finally getting a chance to bring themselves into the curriculum, and that's what Voyagers does. So
Before you pass it along,
Sure.
your credentials.
Oh, I went to school to become a teacher. I'm Greenville, South Carolina, a private school down in South Carolina. Came up to New Jersey. I actually played baseball and got hurt, and I had to get a real job. And the real job, my calling was to be. I went to King University, got my teaching certification. I went to Georgia Core University for curriculum instruction. I went to Rutgers University to get graduate degrees in educational leadership and policy. I don't think I missed anything else. But that's where I come from. But my search was always to look for a Voyagers type school throughout my entire education. Is knew there had to be a place like this, and I found it here in Eatontown. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Katie Cook. I'm the Director of Curriculum here at Voyagers. I've been here since 2008, and since then the school has grown from kindergarten through 6th grade classrooms to what you see now, which is our infant, all the way through 12th grade. So I've seen the school help the school grow, and at this point I have my children enrolled here, so I reap the benefits of that. But really, I came to progressive education looking for a community that valued young people as valuable human beings that have a voice in their life and have lots to add regardless of age and their experience. And I met Karen, and everything kind of came together, moved here to New Jersey. I've been mainly teaching the high school humanities classes for the last 8 years or so, since my son was born. And I have a master's degree in curriculum and instruction and integrated teaching through the arts from Lesley University. And I look forward to bringing my passion for progressive experiences and teaching to this startup movement here.
Hi, I'm Jessica Salitti. I'm going to catch my breath. I'm the Director of Technology here at Voyagers, which is why you see me running around, making sure everything is functioning properly. As a member of this team, I'll be assisting with all aspects of the new school launch. Prior to joining the team here at Voyagers, I spent about 10 years teaching and supervising in public schools, both in New Jersey and in Philadelphia. I have 2 master's degrees in curriculum instruction and in science education. I also have a PhD in educational leadership and technology, learning technologies from Drexel University. I've had many roles throughout my career. I've launched STEM programs, new STEM programs at schools, designed curriculum, supervised new teachers in higher education. So my time at Drexel, I worked as a co-PI on a few different NSF grants, which are large multi-million-dollar grants, particularly in the STEM fields. I presented at conferences, published in peer-reviewed journals. I also am still an adjunct professor at Drexel, where I primarily teach methods courses. So teach new teachers how to teach math and science primarily. And I'm really excited to be part of this new venture.
Hi, everyone. My name is Allison Keelan. I provide consultation services at Voyagers in the areas of curriculum and professional development. I've also been a teacher researcher in the outdoor school and in the high school, and I serve as a teacher coach. I'm certified as a special education teacher in nursery school through 12th grade, elementary school teacher, a principal supervisor, as well as a school administrator. I hold a bachelor's degree in special education, a master's degree in school administration. I've worked in the field of education for over 30 years, and during that time I held positions as a principal, a vice principal, supervisor, teacher, and an adjunct professor as well. In 2003, I had the unique opportunity to open a brand new school in public education. So I am really excited to be here with you and see where we can go with this amazing project. I can start it in.
As an introduction, and then we'll come back to you again.
Okay. Good evening, Jonathan Rieti, Rabbi Rieti. I have a master's in education and I took Montessori training. For those who are not familiar, Montessori is really hands-on education for children 3 through adulthood. And my first hour of Montessori training, I got more hands-on how to help children than in 2 years of a master's degree. I've been working with children for pretty much 35 years. And after I took the Montessori training, I developed an equivalent Judaic curriculum for 3 years old till about 18. And it includes literally thousands of materials. I have in a model classroom, nearly 3,000 square feet. I bought just a very small sampling here tonight to share with you. And I'm currently working with about 12 schools across the country, 2 in Mexico, 1 in Jerusalem, that are taking on what I call 10 building blocks of education. So this is a reframing. It hasn't changed the curriculum, but the way it is presented enables children to do much more learning than the teacher teaching. And that's really what I'm looking to change. I call it a revolution without bullets. I'm not looking to hurt anybody, but children learn much more when the teacher switches the role from teaching information to facilitating learning. And this is something that I know from my own personal experience working with kids. For almost 30 years, I was working with children in special ed at the 2 ends of the classroom. Children at the bottom of the class, I don't like using that term, I'm going to use it just so we know what we're talking about, who are struggling with ADD, ADHD, LD, in my days it was just LSD. I never tried it myself with all these labels. So the top of the class, you had kids who were gifted. The gifted children were coming to me because they were bored out of their minds, understimulated, required much more challenge. And what bothered me is that I never met a single child who was not gifted in at least 1 to 3 intelligences out of what's called multiple intelligences. Howard Gardner has popularized it, actually started by Peter Salovey, whose real name was Soloveitchik, but he gave Dr. Gardner written permission, full permission to take all the credit for emotional intelligence and multiple intelligences. So my experience tells me that the child has a teacher that trusts their intelligence. That's where the child has a starting chance to be who they were wired to be, curious, loving exploration, love life, always looking for understanding and deeper answers. And if we don't stump them by the time they reach first grade, children will grow. And that really is going to depend on the interfacing of the teachers with the child. So my biggest work for the last nearly 18 years is teacher training. I'm trying to create an army of teachers that are trained to know how to facilitate learning on the part of the child. And that's why I brought a few samples just to give you a little bit of a sample of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I am so excited to be here tonight. So as many of you know, I am the founding director of Voyagers Community School. All this simply was a moment in time where I looked at my eldest son and said, there has got to be a better way. So I came into his life when he was 4, just turning 5 and starting school with the yellow raincoat and the school bus, marker on his pennant on his chest, going off to school for the first day, all excited. And very quickly, and quite unfortunately, he became less and less excited, and the allure of school was gone. And a child who had been precocious and curious and full of communication, ability to communicate ideas, no matter who was around him, became quiet and sullen and frustrated and reluctant to go to school. This went on through many years, and It wasn't for his lack of intelligence, because I had a child who I knew was extraordinarily intelligent, but it was for the lack of inspiration, it was for the lack of connection, it was a lack of something meaningful for him to explore. So he wanted to go to school and he had ideas. Here was a kid who, did some crazy things. So he wanted to see if he could move a playground, and he tied it to his uncle's truck. Not the most delightful thing to do, but interesting. What was he trying to accomplish? And these were the kinds of things. One day I went out and he had a Power Wheels car and he had flags out and he was teaching himself to parallel park. He was 4. He was 4. He always was on an adventure. He was always in the woods. He was always wandering and exploring, and all of his learning was done in those spaces and at our table and with family and friends. It wasn't done at school. And I slowly but surely lost this joyful, precocious boy. And at the same time, came into my life 2 more, both of whom we adopted, and they're 5 months apart, and 10 years between men. You're welcome. 10 years between my first and my next 2, and so I got to do it again. I got to do it over. And I said at that point, there's got to be a better way. There has to be a better way. There has to be a way that children are joyful and engaged and happy. And so I went out searching, and trust me, I went to schools all over the community looking for just the right place for my children. And I was fortunate because I found a small school in Mooncroft, New Jersey, a Child's Place, and I enrolled my children because when I was in the parking lot, I saw the children coming out excited, shouting in the cars and wanting to tell a story about something that happened at school. And when I went into the building, I found that the children did far more talking than the teachers, and the talking that the teachers did was about, what are you thinking? Why are you doing that? I heard you say this. What can we do next? They were all questions. They were all inspirations. They all what we call provocations. The provocations that then say to a child, we value what you're saying. What you're saying and wondering is important. Teach me more. Tell me more. And so it becomes this facilitating of learning. We've got 4 seats up here if you'd like to come up. This facilitating of learning, this joy of learning, this partnership in learning. And so unfortunately that school ended in first grade. First grade. So what would I do? I had no idea what I would do next. But I said to the director of the school, let's grow the school, let's grow the school, let's grow the school. And unfortunately, she was thinking, let me retire. And I said, let's grow a school. And so we wasn't a meeting of the minds. And one day I just said, you know what? Much like Naomi had this moment, I had this moment where I felt it had to happen. And it was my job to make it happen. And so I started Voyagers Community School. So the process of doing that, and I see myself as having always been a teacher. So from very, very early on, first of all, I am one of 5 children in my household, in my parents' household. I'm the eldest girl in an Italian household. And if anybody else has that position, you know your job. So I helped raise the children and always taught. I remember having the classroom upstairs in the room in the attic and teaching my sister. I remember as a dancer, coming in and teaching dance as a scout leader. I have 2 chairs right up here. As a scout leader at a very young age, leading children and always teaching. I always saw myself as a teacher. I did not study education. I studied political science, so I went to a small women's college. It was number 5 in the country at the time, in Maryland, Hood College, and received a degree in political science and communications. And I thought I would be a lawyer. It's really what I thought. But my first offer for a job was to teach in a 6th, 7th, and 8th grade classroom in Massachusetts. And I moved up there knowing no one, loaded up my $400 car, and made it up there, and taught 5th, 6th, and 8th grade. And that I first got the taste of teaching in an engaging way, teaching in a way that was exciting, teaching in a way that was far unique for these children who technically the 6th and 8th graders in middle school, which is always a challenging age, right? Little snarky, let's be honest. But I had the loudest classroom in the building. I was lucky because the chair of the department let me do that. And I learned so much about what it means to engage children, all of children's senses into learning, and what it means to understand that you are not just a teacher, that you are a researcher, you're collecting data, you're watching the children, you're listening to children, you're collecting the information, and you are then building a curriculum with them. So I was not just a teacher, I was a researcher. And I was not just a teacher, but I was also a learner, because the children taught me so much about what they wondered and how they dug deeply into learning. And that's where I understood and was able to articulate that children are powerful, resourceful, and competent. That children are in their own right today, in this moment, whatever that moment is, contributing, wanting to teach, and wanting to be a part of something bigger than themselves. In the traditional education, which has been here for 130 years or more, right? In traditional education, we understand that it's become very stagnant. This has become very stagnant. And it's been done the same way over and over and over and over and over. You know, I was watching a video recently, and if you can picture, definitely for me and hopefully for you, you remember a phone, right? The phone had push buttons and it had a wire, right? Now we hold it in our hands, we take it everywhere. It gets smaller and smaller or bigger and bigger the way we want it, and it does a million things, right? Talk about a car. So a car, you pulled up, you put gas in the car, and it went. Now, you might be fortunate enough to plug your car in, right? So these things have changed. We could talk about a computer. Remember your first computer, big screen, clunky hard drive. Now we carry this and it has everything. And a phone is a computer. So many things have changed. But if you look in a classroom, 130 years ago, desks in rows, teacher at the front of the room, everybody sat and listened, hand out the paper, check it off, right? What do we see today? The same thing. Desks in rows, children waiting to be told what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and just kicking back to us what they think we want to hear, what they think will get them the grade, right? And then getting anxious and overwhelmed. And I knew this from a very, very early time being in the classroom. And so my trajectory has been to come to this moment where I would open a school. And so I have my master's degree in education with a focus on peace and partnership and foundations in progressive education. And through that master's degree, I wrote the philosophical foundation for this school. And in 2004, I opened the school with 7 children in it, just 7 children, one being my own daughter. And at the time, a learning center that then grew the next year, 7 full-time students, 17 homeschool students, and every year thereafter grew and grew and grew. And it's been amazing. I mean, when I first started, I thought, okay, I'll do this school and I'll build it up to 8th grade and then I'll have some preschool. And instead, what happened was we got to a point, and Katie can attest to this, we got to a point where kids would be in 7th and 8th grade and they didn't want to leave. Why do I have to leave? I finally found something that's meaningful for me. Why do I have to leave? And so we said, okay, because we do believe that anything is possible. Okay, we'll start a high school. And so before we even did the preschool, we did the high school. And it was a wonderful journey. And we have incredible students who have graduated from this school. Every student, 100% of our students have been accepted to 4-year colleges. Very fine. You know, we're very excited this year. We have Amherst, we have Wake Forest, we have, I can't even, Smith College and University of Delaware and Rutgers and Howard and Spelman, and I could just go on and on and on. But over the years, Pace University, Savannah College of Art and Design, and Sale, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And you take children and you look at them as powerful, resourceful, and competent, and you believe it in your heart and in your mind, and beautiful and wonderful things happen. So that's my trajectory. I have a master's certificate in college and career counseling, so I also do that. I spend a great deal of time with my high school students, but particularly my juniors and seniors, counseling through their college process, which I will brag to say is part of their success, is the journey we take together. And so I am immensely involved in this school. It's interesting because when I started the school, here I was, a mother of 2 young children. My eldest was now in entering high school, and people run the school till our little ones graduated. They were making bets. And then at some point, my nephew joined, and so when my children graduated and I didn't, and I kept going, they said, "Oh, she'll close it when her nephew graduates." And my nephew is long graduated. In fact, I'll soon be going to his high school graduation. He did not go to high school here. He went to high school in Freehold. But it's a journey that raises every bit of my passion. It's a journey that frankly makes me who I am. I am now very much on a mission to disrupt education, to change the world. I am not fooling around. I have no time or patience left for what's happening in traditional settings. I don't care where, it doesn't matter to me, but I do believe that children deserve this. And I do believe that we deserve this, because when you provide this to children, you get so much back. And are we not a society together? Are we not going to depend on our children to expand this world that we live in and hopefully make it a good, kind, empathetic, thoughtful, intellectual world? That's what I'm invested in. So the theory and practice for the school is based on this idea that children are powerful, resourceful, and competent, but it also comes from a great many resources. So when I was preparing for the school, I traveled all around the United States, and I went to all kinds of schools. I went to Waldorf schools and Montessori schools and democratic schools and free schools and public schools and charter schools, and I went everywhere to find an answer, but pieces and parts that school that runs to its community. I think that's very important. So you know it's called the Voyagers Community School, because I very much believe, and we believe here, that we are responsive to the community of people and who they are and who we are collectively together and what we want for our children. Which is why it is very natural for me to see this with its core in Judaic studies, because it's no different. It's no different. Our core here is really around global citizens and understanding your part in the world and being cognizant of what's going on in the world and being responsible as a citizen to help make a better world. I think you would probably say it's much at the core of Judaic understanding. But I understand that this Judaic curriculum, this desire to have your children in a school that is at its core Judaic makes great sense to me. And the practice can happen anywhere, in any school, with anything at the core, as long as it's good. I make that differentiation. It has to be good, because if it's not good, it will be tarnished. So that's very, very important. The theory and practice comes from many, many people. So Maria Montessori, John Dewey, Ron Miller, John Miller, and one of my very favorites, Caroline Pratt, who started the City and Country School in Manhattan, which still exists today, who founded unit blocks. You know those blocks your children build with? She was the founder of those unit blocks, and had and still has space that is never used for anything but block building. Why? Think about it. Think about collaboration, negotiation, math, science, right? Communication, all the kinds of things that go into a group of people building something. And what better than something as simple as blocks to build, but the things that they build are magical. So these are some of the places where I found my encouragement. I was very fortunate to be involved in the Alternative Education Resource Organization in years where it was very personal. And so you went, and I would be sitting next to John Taylor Gatto, who wrote Dumbing Us Down and is an amazing educator. Sitting next to Alfie Cohen, who some of you have probably read as parents. Sitting next to Leila Gandini and Reggio Emilia schools and her founding of Reggio Emilia schools. I had access to the most incredible people who helped me again to hear why they were doing what they were doing and to take from them the best of what they were doing. We were fortunate too, and Katie knows in the early years, to host education conferences and have these very people in our school talking to our parents and helping us to figure out how to continue to support this form of education. So these theories, these foundations have to happen. They have to be at the core. And then you can build a school accordingly. And then when you're challenged, you can go back to it and you can say, is that thing that we're thinking about doing, is that thing we're being asked to do, does that fit into the core? Does that fit into the philosophical foundation? Does that continue to keep us being who we say we are, right? It's very, very important to have that reminder. And that's mainly my job, and has mainly been my job. You can see over the years, I have amassed an incredible staff. I mean, these are the finest people. The thinking, the doing, the amount of work they put in, the amount of hours, they live and breathe education. And so when I'm at the table with them, or when I'm just standing back and listening to them, as you will tonight, you will see the heart and soul they do. And you'll understand why this is different than what you might see going into a traditional school, public, private, doesn't matter, where the teacher's been doing the same thing over and over and over again. You'll have an opportunity tonight to hear more about curriculum and how curriculum grows here. But curriculum can't grow, again, unless you see the child as powerful, resourceful, and competent. Unless you understand that children will try and try again, that they want to learn, that every one of them, as Rabbi Rietti said today, every one of them is intelligent. Every one of them brings something to the table. Every one of them is important to the community learning. It's essential. And so every child needs to feel heard, seen, valued, loved. And every child needs to feel joy. Every child needs to feel curiosity. Every child needs to feel those moments where the light goes on and something wonderful happens for them. Every child needs this. And it is essential, absolutely essential for every child to learn in the ways that they will learn. And I do believe that every child is gifted. Every child is gifted. It's our job to find their gift. It's our job to help them find their gift. It's our job to shine a light on their gift. It's our job to teach them how to use that gift to lift themselves up and lift up people around them. That's what we're here for. You've had a chance to see the environment. Environment is very intentional. So for instance, you see these paintings on the walls. Every person, every parent, every student paints, every teacher paints a canvas. And these canvases are all around the building. You might have seen when you came in to the first floor in our lobby, pictures and I am statements. Every person is an individual, and we highlight them and we highlight who they are as they see themselves. We're also saying with all of that, that we are someone together. We are important together. You'll see documentation, so it may be something like this with our vision statement on it, or you may go up into a classroom and you can read and see how a study is going along and what the children are contributing to that study and maybe the direction that it's going in. So you see documentation. Documentation tells you much about who we are. You see this beautiful building, something as simple as seeing all the pipes and wires and lights and switches. They know the heart of this building. They know how this building runs. There's no question about how the water gets there and what happens when you flush it. There's no question about the lights and going on. And the building becomes a teacher as well. We call it the third teacher is our environment. It is very, very, they're keenly interested in this. I don't know how many times they've come down and taken the blueprints to figure something out, to find an answer or think about it. We have a garden. They are a part of that garden. Welcome. We have a garden. They're very much a part of that garden. we recycle, we compost. We don't do it. Our students our stuff in the bucket, but it's the students who do it. So they take care of the earth, they take care of the animals, they take care of the building. They're very much a part of this environment, and the environment is built for them. So it is very intentional that we have large windows and we bring, in a sense, bring the outside in. It's very intentional that we have wood in all the classrooms, that we have natural materials. You'll talk more probably about some of this, but the environment is important to the school's life and what the children want to bring to it. So I think those are the three things that I really wanted to explain to you is at the core, the theory and philosophy and the practice, which everyone will talk more about. But essentially, and again, I'll say over and over again, the image of the child, the image of the child. What can happen if you just imagine that you see a child as having all the possibilities in the world, having all the skills and abilities to be who they are meant to be, to find themselves and to grow in their joy and their curiosity and therefore in their intellect, and to teach you and me and the world something that we might not have known without them. That's what moves me. I'm sorry? Yep.
Good evening. Again, a very special thank you to Naomi for pulling this all together and Karen for teaming up together and creating the possibility of what this can mean for our future children. I'm going to share with you a few samples of what happens when a child is given the responsibility for growing himself, herself. According to King Solomon, the famous mission statement of education is Chanukh Hanar al pi darko, which means educate the child according to his or her way. So if you look at the verse, you'll notice that I'm not allowed to start the educational component till his or her way has been revealed. So that requires that the parent or teacher has taken the trouble to actually observe and learn about the child. What do they gravitate to? What are their interests? What do they enjoy doing when they're not in their school environment that they would love to play, whether it's recess or whether it's at home? Because all of that are clues that will help me understand the path, derech, of the child. So that's why I mentioned earlier, I've never met a child, and I really do truly mean it, who's not gifted. I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of children, gifted children included, amongst them in Hunter's College, had an accelerated program for gifted children. So there were two kids who were in a master's program, both Jewish, and they came to me because they had a superiority complex. They looked down on their teachers and their professors and their parents, and they were in a master's program. They finished their bachelor's and they were 14 years old. So they were suffering from a superiority complex, can't think why. And when I tried to help them understand that there was a huge breakthrough, here you've got kids who, at the age of 4, one of them remembers when he was reading Shakespeare and his grandmother came and says, "Oh, Einstein!" And he never forgot that pinch on his cheek. It was the first time he said that he suddenly realized that what parents, friends, teachers, are making such a fuss of was what's between his ears.
You can actually put it on the table and it'll stay with you.
Okay.
Yes.
So then he realized, so what matters most is my brain power, my scores, my report card, my grades. And this continued throughout school. And this is what we're trying to, I don't want to say reverse, but we're trying to help our children realize they are not a grade, they're not a report card. There are so many talents, either latent or are obvious, that children do have. And when they're given an environment, a physical environment, where there are physical materials and teachers who are trained in, number one, trusting the intelligence of children. God wired them brilliant. Children have incredibly absorbent minds. So why is it that a child is failing in math, doesn't get the science, and yet home, he can name every single character, personality, let's say, in a Harry Potter, or out of respect to the Jewish audience, Herschel Potterovich. Why is it the same child who's failing in language is so articulate, has leadership qualities when it comes to making friends and making teams? So when a teacher is trained to recognize the virtues, the qualities, the talents that a child has, that becomes a platform for teaching any subject that the child would otherwise be failing in. Example, I have a child who's not interested in Judaics, and I was called in as a consultant to a school in Brooklyn to work with this kid. So he's sitting at the back of the class and he's reading Harry Potter. So I quietly asked him which volume we're up to. He said, number 4. I said, have you finished all 7? He said, yes. I said, oh, good. So you can tell me who's your favorite character. We started having a conversation. Now, he was in a class at the time of what's called Tariq Mitzvah, 613 commandments of the Bible. And I asked him, do you know how many of the commandments relate to magic? So he didn't know. So I said, actually, there are 51. And I started pulling out, this is one of the sets of 613 photo cards of the 613 commandments of the Torah. So I'm actually Italian, but I was raised Sephardi, so please forgive me if I switch to a nationality. It's not just used to that, but I'm actually raised Sephardi. So out of the 613, so here's an interesting way that once you know the child, you know what ticks, what makes them interest, you've got an entree. So I don't have to force him to take interest in the subject, I'll bring the subject to him. Another example was a child, let's say, who loves animals. So once I know the child loves farm animals, he's got pets at home, and he's looking up books in the school library, all to do with pets, that's great. Now, I'll ask him, do you know how many of the commandments in the Bible refer to animals? It's actually 187. So you've got a way to get the child interested in learning about parts of an animal, the innards, the various sacrifices, offerings that were made in the time of the temple, kosher animals, non-kosher animals, etc. All I'm bringing out is something that's extremely simple. Every child is dying to learn. Every child is dying to be proficient in reading. There's not a child that actually doesn't want to learn. What does happen is where a child is finding it difficult, he's not understanding why it is that this particular shape of a Hebrew letter has a sound, and it's called Zion. So there are children who are ready to make that. The children are not yet ready. It doesn't mean they're slow, unintelligent, or behind. It simply means they may not be ready to find another way to endear them to the shape of the letters. So we can have a whole generation of a serious proportion of children who hate reading, and not because they've experienced reading and now hate it. It's because they found it a struggle. It starts with shapes of letters and the initial sounds. It will then be with, in Hebrew, matching the nekudot, the vowels, with the letters. And some children are ready to do that, others not. So if you've got a classroom of preschoolers, and let's say 3/4 of the class are already up to letter men, so already halfway through the Hebrew alphabet, and you've got kids struggling, and they're still really struggling with the first 3 letters. And then is already 20 plus letters in, so 15 letters in. So the child is going to get the impression something's wrong with me. I'm slow, I'm not as smart as, I can't do what the others can do. And slowly, that deep desire to want to read becomes, I want to read, but it's difficult. I want to read, I really want to read, but I find it very hard. I can't, this is painful. I embarrass myself just mispronouncing. And what ends up happening is that it switches from dying to learn to, God forbid, going to the 0 side of the scale and then the minus. I hate reading. And that's part of what we're up against in a teacher-centered model, which is about the child meeting the expectations of curriculum. What happens here in this model is you fit the curriculum to the child. And when the child picks up very quickly that I'm not being measured by who else is in the classroom or which page the other children are on, whether they are ahead or behind, I'm being measured by my own efforts. Being celebrated. This is what trained teachers do. Celebrate mistakes that the child will make. Because when you make a mistake, you're going to have a breakthrough. Because nobody in business made no mistakes. And Harvard Business School, 8 years ago, provided a report where 86% of multi-millionaires got there because they failed the most times in business, which says they started again and started again and started again. And that's what we want children to know of themselves, that when they make a mistake, we'll find another way to get them to you. That confidence, that trust that the child feels from the teacher is what opens up the mind and allows the cap off the head. I'm not referring to this one, but the invisible cap that might be placed on a child. So I've had in my classroom, for example, in first grade, I've had 2 children who were able to go ahead in Hebrew grammar. By the end of first grade, 2 of them were up to high school dikduk, high school Hebrew grammar. Not because they're geniuses. I had two of the kids in my class who arrived from preschool multiplying 3 digits in their head. Not because they're geniuses, but because math was taught with physical materials, beads. And when they're taught, it's this Montessori, taught with beads, where they spend hundreds of hours between the ages of 3 and 6 manipulating colored beads and understanding the quantity and addition, subtraction, multiplication, etc. It's no wonder that by the time it comes to abstract, they understand that this numeral, this sign for number 9 with another 9 and another, that's 999. They understand the quantities and their mind is able to actually multiply. There's no mystery when a child has a breakthrough. It's simply natural. God wired kids to be extremely absorbent and extremely curious. It's usually around about first grade where that starts to really become dumbed down, as Karen quoted from John Taylor Gatto? Gatto, thank you. In his book, and forgive me, this is his title, I happen to like the title, Weapons of Mass Instruction. And they are, because when a child thinks, I trust my teachers, I trust the adults in my life. So when I find myself failing in a subject, of course, you must be right, I must be wrong. So when I get a low score, that is who I am in math, language, geography, history, science, Judaics. But what happens when the teacher is trained to recognize if a child's having a struggle, let's identify how we can have a breakthrough in that struggle. So I'm just going to touch on a couple of examples. Let's say in preschool, we have what's called a movable alphabet. This is actually what I had made out of the inspiration I got from Montessori training, where they also have a movable alphabet. And typically, children learn to write before they can read. I'll explain. So, for example, and this is just such a simple cha. In English is how do you understand? An insight, understanding. So there are thousands of words in the mind of a child before they're even speaking. But once they're speaking, before they're reading, way before they're reading, could be 3, 4, 5 years old. They are part of an environment, let's say in Judaics, they know what this is, it's a menorah. They know what this is, it's a shofar. This is a yarmulke. So what would happen as a child is learning the Hebrew letters, and this is very typical, children at 3, 4 years old can spend hours. I'm just going to give you a very simple sample of what they're capable of doing. I'll say, Sarah, can you tell me what this is? Very good, it's a menorah. Can you tell me what's the first sound in m? Now you can see I'm helping the child by the menorah. Oh, it's a m sound. Which letter in the Hebrew alphabet, the child's learned the alphabet, which letter makes a m sound? Oh, it's a mem, very good. Can you find me a mem for me, please? Thank you, can you place it over here? What's the next sound in menorah? Oh, which sound makes a nun? Oh, it's the letter nun. Oh, can you find me the nun? What ends up happening is children start spelling words and reading them before they've even actually learned those words. Do you follow? Because you're taking something that's a sound in their brain, yamuka, yamulaka, minara, shafa, you're taking words that are already there, and because they've been introduced and they know the letters and the first sound of the letters, they can start spelling this out. So this is not unusual for 3 and 4-year-olds to be manipulating letters and taking objects from all around the physical environment. It can be something like eraser, and they'll figure out which letters add up to. You follow the logic? You can have children. I've got thousands, and I exaggerate not, thousands of materials on in a 3,000 square foot above ground basement, where I've seen children 3, 4, and 5 years old spend as much as an hour and a half to 2 hours on their own, learning independently. This is not unusual in a model of this type where it's child-centered. The focus, the concentration, the persistence, and much of the materials are actually self-correcting. I apologize, I didn't bring you nearly everything at all, but we have materials for the 613 commandments in a stick figure version and photo version. I brought a couple of blow-ups here, so I'm not sure you can see clearly. This is Havdalah, for example, distinguishing between the Sabbath and a weekday. Tefillin Shel Rosh, tefillin on the head. This is Birkat Hamazon, saying blessing after eating bread. Here is eating matzah on the first night of Passover. These are very simple pictures that when the child is taught this, there's different pieces of information. There's a code name for each mitzvah, each commandment. On the back is the Hebrew description of Maimonides, and then English, and then the verse which it's taken from. And children learn after they've been introduced to 120 mitzvahs, which is 120 commandments. It takes me about 40 minutes to teach 120 commandments with close to 100% attention. And the reason why is because I will go with the child. What's mean go with the child? Select those commandments that they are familiar with on a daily basis. Oh, mezuzah, tefillin on the head, tefillin on the arm. Oh, tzitzit, lulav, etc., sukkah. So after they've learned 100 plus mitzvahs in such a short time, I keep asking, do you think this is going to be very hard to study, or do you think it's going to be easy? So you're going with the kids already what they are exposed to in their environment during the year. And this, I'll be honest with you, I've never given a 10-minute synopsis of my 10 building blocks. So I may do injustice and real justice. I have something called 10 building blocks of education. The first one is language acquisition. We've got literally hundreds and hundreds of materials where you give a 2-minute lesson. It's called a mini lesson. You give the child a mini lesson how to use this material, and now the child is going to practice on their own. And they can do that for hours and hours, sometimes even weeks. Once they know how to use a particular material, they can go as fast as they are ready, and then they can come to you for help. You do this with lots of small groups or the individual children, and then that frees you up to spend the rest of what's called work cycle time, a period where the children are working on their own. You are freed up from teaching to work with the individuals or in very small groups. So that's really chinuch, that's really education, al pi darko, going according to the way of that specific child. But in a regular classroom, not to put it down, you just don't have that luxury. A teacher's not got the luxury in front of 20 plus kids to spend any amount of time individually without the rest of the class losing focus on what they're supposed to do. But when you've got thousands of materials that are incrementally scaffolded for the child to go through different areas of the curriculum, the child can do this on their own, and now you are freed up to work one-on-one with the children themselves. Here is taken from what I call building block number 4, is contextual learning. That means to say we've got a picture of creation of the universe all the way to 43 pictures later till resurrection of the dead, 6,000 years later. So this will be laid across the wall in the classroom, and you can cross-reference any time. I'll just do this very quickly in your imaginations. Your imagination. Just for a few seconds, I promise to return it. So just pretend for a few seconds. Here's the creation of the universe, and right at the end is what we call 6,000 years later is Tchiat HaMetim, which means the resurrection of the dead. So here you've got Adam. He was created 3000 BC. So Adam was FFC from creation. So here's Adam, 10 generations from Adam till Noah. Here is the flood, 10 generations from Noah till Abraham. The life of Abraham, Isaac, and Yaakov, the life of Joseph. They go down to Egypt, and then they're slaves. Then they come out after 10 plagues, and they arrive at Sinai. God gives the Torah at Sinai, and then they're 40 years in the desert. And over here is the end of 2,488 years. Are you holding on? This is the fastest journey you've ever taken. I'm sorry, I have to correct myself. I'll translate. The fastest journey you've ever taken. So 2,488 years, and then Joshua enters the land of Israel and conquers the land. Then comes the building of the first temple with King Solomon, the destruction of the first temple with Nebuchadnezzar and the Babylonian exile, that followed by the Persian exile, and immediately the story of Megillah Esther. Are you holding inside here? I'm asking you to imagine you've got pictures for all of these. And what's happening is the child, in a matter of minutes, literally, is seeing, oh, here's the beginning of time. And as we move forward, I'm just going to skip really fast to 5,781, which is the Jewish calendar year, where the child is. You have a photo of the children right there with a big "you are here." And he said, "You are here." And the only three things that haven't happened yet is Messiah coming with Kibbutz Galiot, which means the gathering of the exiles, the building of the third temple, and finally Tchiat HaMetim, which refers to the resurrection of the dead, which is this picture here. So what you've done in a matter of minutes is you're showing children everything they're ever going to learn in Judaics is part of this context, history timeline. Oh, you're learning about the story of Esther. Oh, and Purim. Oh, where's that on the timeline? Oh, you're learning about Hanukkah. Where's that on the timeline? Oh, you're learning about Rashi. Oh, the famous commentator of the Bible. He's over here. Where's he on the timeline? So you're helping children all of a sudden take of information, and it's in one big framework, one big context. That's why I call it contextual learning. We have something called memory systems. Memory systems means we put so much effort into children learning information, but we put very little effort into helping kids retain it. So we've got a whole building block how to build using memory systems, mnemonics, so children at the age of 5, 6, 7 years old can remember what they learn. I'm going to close everything as I've already gone over time. We have a whole curriculum just on bullying, how to create an environment of a community that understands what are the mechanics of bullying, pick up very quickly what is a bully, who is a victim, and of course, who is the bystander. There are 3 types of bystanders. Bystander who, number 1, agrees with the bully, that's terrible. Bystander number 2 does not agree with the bully, is too afraid to jump in. Bystander number 3 will do something about it. And we go around the whole class to have a consensus. Who do you want to be in your life? A bully, a victim, or bystander? Everyone wants to be bystander number 3. And then we talk about how important it is in the classroom that if we ever notice anyone trying to have an imbalance of power over and above another student, how are we going to turn? So there's a components here which you will not find in a regular yeshiva, not to put them down, God forbid, but just as a statement of the comprehensiveness of this curriculum. It really covers everything the child needs in terms of academics and also in terms of preparation for adult life. Please feel free to ask questions later. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to show you everything, but that would be good to know.
Thank you, Rabbi, really. I really think that it was kismet that Naomi introduced you to us, and appreciate having you here. Everything that he has said tonight really resonates with who we are here at Voyagers, and integrating this curriculum into our philosophy and approach is immediate. I'm happy to hear everything that you're saying, so appreciate it.
Transition.
Don't forget that we have our app. Is it here? The Slido app. If you scan on your map the QR code, you can access polls that we're taking, and you can ask questions, right?
At the end of this, we will get to those questions. So as we go along, if you have a question, feel free to text it to us and to answer the questions.
Yeah,
And we've posed.
and I'll try to keep it short. We are always running over, always more to say. But, I think that this Judaic curriculum would really integrate well with our cross-curricular approach. As Rabbi Rieti said, there's a lot of different ways to access the natural intelligences and interests of children and, not approach curriculum as these siloed subjects, but rather integrate the math and integrate the science and the religion into all of your conversations, because that's the way minds work. Our minds, we're drawing from all of these different experiences that we have, and I think respecting that and allowing that into our classrooms makes us a different, and we really meet every student where they're at and bring them forward on their own path. So every child, as you said, learns differently. And here at Voyagers, every child has a voice in that classroom, and we really respect what they bring to the classroom, the questions that we ask. We listen carefully. We're teacher researchers. We present them with new information to see where they go with it before we present them with all of the answers. We're really trying to give them active, hands-on learning experiences that shape their mind, and really appreciate what they bring into the classroom. So if students are interested in particular things, we bring that and build it into our curriculum. Also, those same students may be teaching classes. Often students know these things better than the teachers in the classroom. They have a fascination or special interests. We allow that into the classroom, and the other students learn and co-create knowledge with them in order to give them the best opportunity to try to take away the anxiety of being judged in a classroom, of having to get the right answer every time. And by giving them the opportunity to relax and be comfortable in their surroundings, then they're ready to learn. And then they're excited to learn again, and they're not worried. And they really change. I think the students that come to us, we see, depending on the student, it may take a different amount of time, but we see growth immediately with most students, and it's really, really amazing. This is awesome.
So building off Katie's information, Voyagers offers a progressive inquiry-based co-created curriculum. So the students are going to be actively engaged in the learning process. We're looking for students who are curious, creative, and passionate. And we're going to challenge the students to push themselves by engaging them in a learning experience that's really built upon a bond of trust. They start to feel comfortable taking learning risks and exploring things and looking deeper into different topics. So how do we do this? We utilize a multi-sensory approach. So we connect with our students in whatever ways that are unique to them and how they learn. We adapt our instruction to their different learning styles. We challenge the students to be creative problem solvers who think outside of the box. This requires children to think critically, work collaboratively, articulate ideas, and ask intellectually curious questions. The smaller class sizes, I mean, when you can have that connection with your teacher and the time with your teacher, it's invaluable. And with your peers, because they're going to be learning from one another. The mixed age levels really offer a lot of opportunities for students to be mentored as well as mentor others. And they learn to find that spark in themselves where they become a leader. They find that part. They can become passionate about things and share that information with one another. And they build really incredible relationships. The difference from a traditional program, and I think Rabbi Rieti, you mentioned that, Rich mentioned that, Katie, is that the concepts aren't glossed over in a superficial manner. We take the time for students to get a deeper understanding. They're going to make personal connections, which actually, Rabbi Rieti, we spoke about this on the last Zoom about the timeline. They make they start to make connections with the content they're learning in their religious studies, math, science, whatever it is, and put that in context of their life. How do we make sense of that? How do I use that? Where do I see that, taking me? What else do I want to learn about this? And we start to develop that. We do that also through projects. So it's a project-based learning experience. And when they work in projects, they learn to develop executive functioning skills. So they learn, we have them writing proposals about what do you want to learn? Why is it important to learn? What materials do I need to learn this? How am I going to manage my time? Listen, sometimes they may not meet the deadline. They done that. And they say, what could I have done better? And we build that resilience, and that's a learning process. They learn how to, speak publicly in public settings. They develop opinions, and then they project outcomes. So this is some of the curriculum that makes learning come alive. It's exciting. It's not a paper and pencil task. We want to challenge them, and that's the unique, aspect that we bring. We also bring an outdoor aspect to learning.
Yeah, I think we would be remiss to point out our focus on being stewards of the earth. Karen mentioned that we have a global stewardship-based program, and that extends to nature. Nature is one of our third teachers. It's really dynamic. It brings a lot of opportunities to explore and wonder and connect on personal levels. And once they develop deep connections, they really start to care about the earth. If you don't have a connection with the world around you and with nature, how can we expect our next generation to care? You really get the chance to build creativity and put students in problem-solving situations. They're always connecting with their peers out there, and so there's a lot of collaboration and negotiation. It helps reduce their anxiety as well. We do sit spots on a regular basis where they relax and kind of meditate and connect throughout the year with the same spot and different animals and changes in nature. And it really forming those relationships with each other and with nature really comes naturally to students, and other education is part of our program.
So we've got the great program, and now we get worried because it's not going to be a paper and pencil task. How do I know my child's learning? Those are important aspects, and we do assess them, but we want to know, what are they learning? How are they learning? So we look at assessment from a different perspective. We're constantly observing your child, but they're assessed in a more natural and authentic way, rather than here's a standardized test. This is what you know, this is what you don't know. We actively use that assessment through formative assessments. So normally you might get a report card. Okay, what's an A? What does that mean? What do they learn? What is that about the whole experience of education? Each trimester, we send home a narrative. And so in that report, you'll see, we summarize the content that was covered, and also the skills that your child has learned. Maybe they're struggling with some things. Maybe they need to develop, different habits of learning we want them to work on. But we also identify their strengths, and we share that with you. The best part, though, is our student-led conferences. This is something that has really changed the conference process, because the students become a member at the table, and they start to reflect on, what are my strengths? They start to recognize that. What are some areas I might need to work on? And they develop, we engage them in conversations, and then they start to identify their own goals. And it becomes more meaningful to them because they start to see, what do I want to work on? But also, they are part of the strategizing of, how can I improve in this area? And then it's really connecting with them. And so that's included, we do the student-led conferences, and they actually prepare for the conference. They start to, as they get older, it becomes a little more complex as well, but even the youngest students are doing this. So it really is a great experience, and they collaborate with one another. And so we all are working together to help your child, grow and learn and be the best that they can be. So in closing, The Voyagers curriculum offers a unique research-based approach to instruction. We are looking for passionate and curious and who can fully engage in meaningful and challenging learning experiences. What we really do is we provide opportunities for students to enjoy the process of learning and experience the joy of diving deeply into topics. And through this type of student-centered approach, we observe children developing higher level thinking skills, which provides a more complex understanding of curriculum. So I'm so happy to be a part of it.
There's so much more we could talk about, but I promised to stay on schedule, so I have to rein in some of what I'm going to say. I have, over the years, since we've moved to this location in 2015, I've been approached again and again from families like yourself who have asked, can you take this Voyagers approach and can you create a space where we can also have the Judaic studies? And I assure you that we can. I assure you that we can. I am so moved to have met Naomi. I am so moved by her heart, her passion, her commitment, her dedication, her ability to articulate those feelings, her role as a mother. I mean, there is just such deep love there for her children. And the fact that it's not limited to her children, but that it's something that she wants. So I want to put that forward because I'm, from my heart. From my heart. Having been introduced from Naomi to Rabbi Rietti, from my heart. We met you and we were wowed. We were warmed. We were inspired. We love to meet other educators who do what we do and do it with such passion and such commitment. And what has been created here is truly incredible. I mean, it is truly incredible. This man has dedicated his life to this, no doubt, in my mind. And so this sort of meeting of people and who've come with their hearts, my people come with their hearts. And so I'm very, very sure of the fact that this can happen if you want it to happen. I want to say that Naomi, with all of what you have, she's only one person. She needs people behind her. She needs you to come to help her if this moves you. If you want this for your children, if you want this for your community, if you want this for all the children, then she needs you. This is not an easy undertaking. I say all the time, if I knew what it took to open a school, what I know now, I might not have done it. I might not have done it. It is not for the faint of heart. It is not easy. It takes years and years and years to hone your practice, to be certain of who you are, to be uncertain and to be willing to stand in an uncertainty and be challenged and rise from that. It is of great strength and commitment. But I know that Naomi has that, and I feel that the community has that. So I'm going to put out a call, and I'm going to tell you that we as a community, the Voyagers faculty and staff here, are very interested in helping. We're very interested in sharing with you what we have, what we know, and what we have. Whether it's the guidebooks, the handbooks, the curriculum, the professional development, the searching for teachers, all the aspects. This team sat for hours and put together what it's going to take to make this happen. And we know we can help you, but we can only help you. You have to want to receive it, and you have to be ready for it. And you have to have the courage, right, to do what Naomi has done, which is to take that step in and make that commitment. Starting a school is again, not easy. So please know that I am certain that anything is possible. I live my entire life understanding that anything is possible. The only thing I might not have found is the needle in the haystack. There, and I know it's possible. This is absolutely possible. It will need funding. It will need funding. It will need a space. It will need wonderful, incredible, open-hearted, intellectual teachers who are committed. It will need parents who have the courage to take the step to be the founding families in this school. And if that comes together, we're here with you. We're here with you, and we will make it happen with you, okay? And short of that, I'm going to tell you that we need funds. You need funds. I don't need funds. You need funds to start your school. And it is in the framework of probably somewhere between $200,000 and $400,000 that's going to be needed to give the foundations to the school to last through years, to help to give out scholarships, to name the school, to name rooms, to provide financial support for families so every child can come. So at Voyagers Community School, we made a commitment long ago to open the school up to everyone that we could possibly open it to. And so in our case, our tuition structure is indexed. So everyone pays tuition based on their income, their assets, and their liabilities. Everyone pays tuition based on their income, their assets, and their liabilities. Our tuition ranges from a high of $27,000, which is going up in the next year, to around $29,000, to a low of zero, okay? But collectively, we are bringing in an average about $16,000 per student, collectively. So it's a willingness for the community to say, yes, I have, and so I will pay according to what I have, because I will help another family to bring in children, and together, those children are filling seats that help the bottom line. So I think sometimes people think, well, I don't want to pay more just for somebody else to be able to come, right? But what you have to understand is everyone is paying, and collectively, we are creating an operating budget to run a school. And so we take responsibility in this school to help so that every child can come. And what has been paid back to us is the joy of seeing these children leave and go out into the world and bring this thinking and this way of being to the broader society. And I know when I get much more gray and older, these children will be a part of my life. As adults, I know that they'll be there, and I know that I am changing the world. We say it, changing the world, and we know we are changing the world every day. So I ask you tonight to think about where you are in this process. Do you remain curious? Do you remain inspired? Are you ready to step up and help? Can you offer something? Can you offer something as an educator? Can you offer something as an investor? Can you offer what you bring to this cause, this goal? Our goal to open a school in September. That is our goal, open a school in September. We have work to do to get there, but we know how to do it. We know you can do it. So that's where we are. And I just want to put that forth. And then I'm just going to pass on to Rich your questions, and we're going to let the evening take its course, and we're running a little late, and I apologize for that. Please feel free to stay. If you would like, feel free to go if you need to go. I understand we're recording this, so we will share the link so Naomi can share the link with everyone. But remember to go back to your poll and now express, why are you here? What do you want to do? Are you ready to step forward with us? Questions?
So Karen, first person is going to go to you. And the question is, what ages is the Judaic launch going to include?
So right now, we're talking about ages K through 5. That's what we're looking at. But we do know that there has been expressed interest in younger years, and so we are thinking about that. But right now, grades K to 5.
Thank you. And Rabbi, this one's for you. And thank you for helping me pronounce the word. How does the Torah and the Halakha fit into the Montessori way of learning?
Okay, so it's a good question. Montessori is about nurturing independence in the children. And that means the children are taught the skills they need to become independent learners. So we're talking about Jewish law, which is what the word halakha responds to. In our curriculum, we have an eight for halakha of Jewish law, and it's all in very simple Hebrew. The goal of Montessori is to give the skills to be able to become independent in text. That's one of its goals. So we have that all mapped out, which materials the child has to learn in order to know the most frequently reappearing three-letter root words in the entire Chumash. There are 16,258 words in Genesis. If you don't mind not counting it now, like on your way out, but it's actually, you don't need to know 16,258 to know Genesis, because there are so many words that reappear so frequently that if you know those, that core will give you access to 81%. There's 300 such words. So when the children learn these words and then they learn the prefixes, suffixes, and basic Hebrew grammar, that enables them to actually start making sense out of text, including the Bible of Moses and Jewish law. Out for 8 grades and completed. So it dovetails very nicely with Montessori.
Thank you. And Karen, I'm going to go back to you for this one. It says, what kind of colleges do your graduates continue to go on to?
Yes, so four-year colleges. So we do have a requirement, I will tell you straight up, that we tell our high school students that they must apply to a minimum of 3 colleges. Why do we do that? We said every child needs to know that they are worthy and that they can. Sometimes children come to us and they come from education environments where they don't feel smart enough. They don't feel good enough. They don't feel like they can. And we feel that they must need to know that they have options in life. So I mentioned some schools already, Oberlin, Pace. One of the things that you will get following this in an email is our college profile. So you will see where our children are going. But everything from Hawaii Pacific to aeronautics, so Embry-Riddle, I mean, you name it, we're there. I am thoroughly impressed, but I think the most important thing is 100% of our students are being accepted to 4-year colleges, and 100% of our students are receiving academic scholarships. 100% of our students are receiving academic scholarships. So we're very, very proud of that. We have a student this year who's been offered a full ride to Teachers College in New Jersey. She's also been accepted to Amherst. Only 11% of applicants are accepted to Amherst. You know, it gives me chills, because the interesting thing about this young woman is that she is one of our very first innovator scholars. She came to high school, full ride, free, 4 years. And we gave her this incredible opportunity, and she seized it, and she made the very best of it. And I am totally convinced she came to us with the desire to be a doctor, and she will be a doctor. There's no doubt in my mind. And we've just fueled that by connecting her to hospitals and internships and doctor's offices and so on and so forth. Just incredible.
So Karen, we talked about the graduates, but here's a question. I want to know, what grade levels will you start with? Maybe that's a question for you, Niall.
Right, so same thing, kindergarten through 5th grade, so we'll have a K-1-2 classroom, a 3rd to 5th grade classroom, and again, I will reiterate, there are people interested in preschool, and so maybe we will think about doing that if the interest is enough. Certainly those elementary years, and then every year we'll just add to it through 8th grade. So eventually we will, at least at a minimum, be a K-8 school. And then we'll see where life takes us, where the children take us.
So the question was, what grade would you start with? We talked about the graduates, but the other question is, what accreditation do the students have that these students do?
So we are very, very proud to say that we have accreditation from the Middle States Association. That is the organization to have accreditation from, because not only do they accredit elementary schools, they also accredit high schools and colleges. And so when our school children apply to college, the college understands the quality of the education that children are receiving because we have the Middle States accreditation.
Thank you. And maybe I'm going to throw this question to Katie. Katie, the question is, how can a child learn by exploring?
Oh, well.
Do you have all night and tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all learn by exploring. I mean, you get your hands in, get your hands dirty, get your mind running, and the questions just start rolling. You start to make connections. The great thing about our classroom too is that you're really encouraged to seek information from your peers and to bounce ideas and to socially construct that knowledge. So it's not just exploring the world around you kind of insulated from life, it's integrated. We do a lot of work in the kitchen. They're always exploring.
Sure. Go ahead.
Yes.
I would add to that, especially as you know from Talmudical texts, you can hardly go 3 pages without a question. And so I think one of the most powerful ways to help children explore is to ask them questions, but to also have them ask questions and keep exploring as far as you possibly can go with that, because that's going to open up their natural curiosity if it's still not blunted, and it will help you understand what they're interested in, what type of questions they're asking, whether it's in math, history, geography. It really makes no sense, it makes no difference. But their curiosity of asking questions is what exploration really is.
Sure. Thank you. And Allison, you brought this up in your introduction, so I'm going to pose this one to you. How do children keep up in a multi-age room, and how do you teach on so many levels?
What's really nice when you teach in a multi-age class, students are exposed to content on so many different levels. And through that, sometimes students who, when you have students of different ability levels as well, they can challenge one another, they can present information in different ways. One of the most interesting things I had as a teacher was one particular student had some learning issues, and what happened was we had done a science experiment, and I would give the kids the materials and I would say, okay, you design the experiment. This is what we're testing for. You design the experiment. And this particular student, had a really bad feeling about himself, like low self-esteem. He always felt like he wasn't where he should be learning. And he designed the most incredible science experiment that was better than any book I had seen. And it was such a celebration in the class. And I was like, oh, this is fabulous, this is amazing. And that child lit up in his heart. And he was never the same after that, because he realized, I am smart, I can do this. And he was never afraid. In fact, he couldn't wait for science. And this was a child who had really retreated from learning. So when you offer those opportunities, multi-age levels, it's just a great learning experience on all different levels.
Thank you. Great answer. Oh, Rabbi.
I feel Rabbi Rieni wants to say something.
On the multi-age thing, I want to add to that. It's one of the areas that I think parents have the most resistance to when hearing that their child's going to be part of with young and older children. So I'm going to say something very blunt. Every single classroom, I'm going to put it in question form, so we'll explore. Every single classroom that you've ever been in, is it accurate to say that you had at least one straight A student and a number of B students and a lot of C students? And that is it true to say that even if every single child in the classroom was born, would you have the exact same range academically and emotionally and socially? Or would you anyway have at least a spread of 3 years of academic, kids at the top of the class, lower at the end of the class, socially, kids who easily make friends, popular, and those who are more on the introvert side? You're anyway going to have a spread of about 3 years, possibly more. You've got children who could easily repeat a year, and there's kids who could go up a year. So when you have a multi-age classroom, what you're actually doing is reflecting reality. because what we have today in the conventional system is actually artificial. Children are being made to compete against each other. Oh, I'm in second grade, he's only in first grade. And there's a sense of, I'm better the older I am. But when you have multi-age classrooms, what ends up happening is that children start to pick up very quickly that I'm in a classroom with older kids, and some of the subjects that I'm really good at, I'm on par with them. And there's other subjects that I'm on par with kids lower than me, and the barriers which are artificial are falling away. And it's extremely important, I would say, for the child's emotional growth to be part of a classroom that actually nurtures the differences, being in the same classroom over a broader spread than in a one grade classroom. So I think those are some of the major benefits.
Very insightful. Great answer.
Thank you.
Jess and Katie, I'm gonna let you guys tag team on this one. This is, what does the math curriculum look like? What does the math curriculum of the high school look like here?
So it's, similar to any of the ages of our math curriculum. So again, it's inquiry-based, it's a hands-on approach, but while still hitting the traditional math classes. So again, it's in a mixed age classroom like all the other classrooms. So we still offer students traditional algebra 1, algebra 2, geometry offering. We do it in a way is accessible for all the students. So that might be a student passing through algebra 1 in a month's time because that's their strength. Or it might be a student taking a whole year and doing half of a math course. So it's the same kind of thing. It's emergent. So we're able to, as teacher researchers, really take data from the students, see where their strengths are, and then catering the curriculum right exactly to them. And also while still providing hands-on activities that supplement the learning.
Yeah, and oftentimes that takes place in other classes. So for instance, they're studying physics right now. So even the kids that are struggling with the math concepts, as freshmen coming in are getting exposed to that higher order physics and getting a little bit extra tutoring from the teacher, a little bit of extra attention, but by the time they get around to it in their math course, they will be much more familiar with it and more comfortable with it because they understand how it applies to the world.
And I'll give you a quick example of a student we had last year that was really interested in aerospace engineering. He passed through, so he came here as a 9th grader, and we were told that he was supposed to be in algebra 1. And he passed right through algebra 1 and 2 immediately. And we offered him geometry. And then he actually started taking a bit of calculus because he was in the room with the other students learning calculus. So it was a really unique experience for him that he was able to get a taste of.
Just as long as the,
Can I just say one thing? I think it's important to also note that mathematics, science, all of are contextualized history. So there's no question about why do I have to learn it? Because they know they need it. They know they need it. And I think the other piece that you should talk about a little bit is financial literacy.
Yes.
So we teach our children about everyday life, real things, money, current.
They want to learn.
Do I take a loan? Do I take a lease, or do I buy a car? Do I buy a house? Do I rent a house? So all these kinds of like, how do I find a job? And what are those taxes that are taken out of my paycheck? Where's that going and why? So that's the other thing that we're very proud of, is that we teach children all these life skills, these understandings that most children do not get. So they leave and they're out in the world at 18 and they don't understand the money in their pocket or on the plastic card, right? So.
thank you. Jess, since you have the swivel, and you probably addressed this at the college level as a professor,
Yeah.
how would older children how would older children get used to traditional teaching to be able to adjust to this new type of learning? It's a good question.
I mean, I think it's the same way that as a traditionally trained teacher, I got used to teaching in this way. You're just wowed and you're moved by the way it works. And it's kind of a natural process. You would be shocked about how easy it is for children of all ages to transition, because they're, like Karen just said, that everything's contextualized. So there's no convincing them that they need to learn, or there's not all those questions. Why are we learning this? When am I ever going to use this? Because they're being shown that, they're being proven that over and over and over again throughout the day, throughout the curriculum, throughout the design. They're designing their own projects, they're writing proposals, they're telling you what they want to learn. So they're moved just as much as we are. They're just as passionate as we are.
So Karen, these two questions seem to go hand in hand, so I'll ask you both and at the same time. It said, the first question says, would the new school be part of the Voyagers or its own entity? And how do I sign up and what are the next steps to enroll?
Great questions. So we believe that the new school will have its own location, but that it will be an offshoot, if you would, of Voyagers Community School. So initially, until such time as, so there's business structures, as you well know, many of you run your own businesses, there are things that have to be done in that regard, but that will not slow Naomi down, will not slow this community down. We are a nonprofit, we have a 501c3, and so any donations that you want to make can come through that nonprofit designated for this school, and all that money will go into the fund for this school. Tell me again, where?
How do I sign up?
How do you sign up? Thank you. How
That's
do
the
you
most
sign up?
important question.
Most important question. How do you sign up? We will be sending to you tomorrow, everyone who's here, everyone who has signed up, we will be sending to you a link to begin your registration process. We will then begin the admissions process. So, bringing you in, interviewing you, talking about the children, looking at all of the admissions documents that are needed, and we will start signing people up. We want founding families. We want you signed up. We will be distributing information as we go along. If you want to communicate with us, you'll find this again when we send the information, but it's the startup team at voyagerscommunityschool.org. It's long, I apologize, but startup team at voyagerscommunityschool.org. So you can communicate with us that way. Certainly Naomi will make herself available. But again, she needs help. So first, identify yourself as somebody who will help her. We'll continue to meet as a team, and we'll continue to move forward in our planning and in our work. But that's it. We want you to sign up. Please sign up, and you'll be proud to call yourselves family and families.
Thank you. I have one last question. I think, I don't know who wants to tackle it. This is probably going to be, well, the way Voyagers works, it's a team effort. And it's a question, I think. How will the day work with Judaic education, and how will Jewish holidays, days off be dealt with?
Calendar is simple, right? So your calendar will reflect, as I said in the beginning, this school will reflect the community and the culture of the people within it. And so those decisions will be made accordingly. So certainly I have no concern about your calendar. We're still talking about the ways in which Judaic study can cross over. Our hope is that it will be integrated into the full day, but we're not certain yet. I think it will take some consideration of the educators who come to us as well. I think that will make a difference. And so, by the way, if you're here and you're interested as an educator, please let us hear from you, because we are in search of teachers. So it's not absolutely clear, but the goal is to have this be an integrated experience. And I think Rabbi Rietti's curriculum gives us that opportunity, where I hadn't seen that opportunity before. So, that I don't know.
Voyagers is that the students and the parents
Yes.
and the teachers all have a voice. And Karen's door is always open. And her team is, every day they're discussing how today can be second best to tomorrow. So that's the commitment they give to you, and they do listen, and they do what's best for the families and what's best for the students, and what's best for the teachers. So, thank you.
Thank you for coming. If you hadn't had a chance to take a tour, I welcome you to walk through the building, please. If you have had a tour, we graciously thank you for coming and understand that you need to go, and soon we will need to go. So we'll have to come to a close of this meeting. But thank you so much, and we're here with you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.